Give it back, you monster!
Listen, I need you to imagine something for me. Picture a 10-year-old girl, barely 4 feet tall, standing in the aisle of an airplane at 35,000 feet. Her hand is trembling, but it's stretched out in front of her, clutching a worn leather wallet. And across from her? A grown woman, a flight attendant, face flushed red with shock and anger. The entire cabin has gone silent. Every passenger is staring. Some have their phones out, recording. And this little girl, with tears streaming down her face, says 5 words that would change everything. That's my dad's wallet. Now, you're probably wondering how we got here. How did a child end up in a confrontation with a flight attendant? Why would she need to snatch back her own father's wallet? And what could possibly justify that kind of scene on a commercial flight? Well, let me take you back to where this all started, because Maya Thompson's story isn't just about a wallet. It's about courage. It's about injustice. And it's about a moment that would go viral around the world and change airline policies forever. Maya Thompson was 10 years old when this happened. Just 10. She was a 4th grader from Detroit, Michigan, and if you met her, the first thing you'd notice was her eyes. Bright, curious, always asking questions. She had brown skin that glowed when she smiled, and she wore her natural hair in 2 puffs on either side of her head. On the day everything went down, she was wearing her favorite purple hoodie, the one with a dinosaur on the front, because Maya was absolutely obsessed with science. This kid read books that most high schoolers wouldn't touch. She'd stay up late watching documentaries about renewable energy and climate change. Her teachers called her gifted. Her classmates called her a nerd, but not in a mean way. Maya owned it. She'd correct adults when they got their facts wrong, not to be rude, but because she genuinely believed everyone deserved accurate information. She was that kid who asked why about everything, who needed to understand how things worked, who saw the world as one giant experiment waiting to be explored. But the most important thing about Maya? The thing that defined her entire world? Her relationship with her father, Marcus Thompson. Marcus was a single dad, and he'd been raising Maya alone since she was 3 years old. Her mother, Angela, had died from complications during what should have been a routine surgery. One day Maya had a mother who sang her to sleep and made the best chocolate chip cookies, and the next day she didn't. Marcus never remarried. He poured everything he had into his daughter. Every single thing. He was an aerospace engineer, worked for one of the big automotive companies in Detroit designing fuel-efficient systems. Smart guy, methodical, organized to a fault. He was the kind of father who still made his daughter breakfast every morning, even though he was terrible at it. We're talking burnt pancakes, scrambled eggs that somehow came out rubbery, toast that was either bread or charcoal with no in-between. But Maya never complained because those breakfasts were their time together. Every morning, Marcus would attempt to cook while Maya sat at the kitchen table doing homework or reading, and she'd correct his coffee-to-water ratio with scientific precision. Dad, you're using a 1:15 ratio. The optimal brewing ratio is 1:17. And Marcus would laugh and tell her she was going to grow up to be the boss of him someday. They had inside jokes that no one else understood, a secret handshake that they'd made up when Maya was 6 and still used every single day, and Marcus called her Little Professor, because she was always teaching him something new. But Marcus wasn't just a loving father. He was a black man raising a black daughter in America, and he knew exactly what that meant. He taught Maya early about presentation, about always being prepared, about working twice as hard to get half as far. Not because he wanted to scare her, but because he wanted to protect her. He'd lay out her clothes the night before school, make sure her homework was perfect, teach her how to speak clearly and confidently. And he always told her, keep your head up, baby. Don't let anyone make you small. Now Marcus had this wallet. It was brown leather, worn soft from years of use, and it was more than just a place to keep his credit cards and ID. Inside that wallet was a photograph of Maya as a baby, chubby cheeks and a toothless grin. There was a photograph of Angela, Maya's mother, from their wedding day, looking absolutely radiant. And tucked in the billfold was a prayer card from Marcus's own mother's funeral, a woman who'd raised him to be the man he became. That wallet held every person Marcus had ever loved. It was his most prized possession. So when Marcus got the email that Maya had been selected as one of 50 students nationwide to present at the National Youth Science Competition in Los Angeles, he didn't hesitate. He emptied his savings account. He used vacation days he'd been saving. He bought 2 plane tickets from Detroit to LA, booked a modest hotel, and told his daughter to get ready for the trip of a lifetime. Maya had spent 6 months working on her project for this competition. It was a system for converting classroom body heat and movement into usable electricity, a renewable energy source that could power lights and computers in schools. She'd built a working prototype in her garage with Marcus's help, tested it at her school, collected data, refined her design. This was her dream, and Marcus was going to make sure she got her shot. The morning of their flight, Marcus woke up at 5 a.m. He made those terrible pancakes, burnt on one side, raw in the middle. Maya ate them anyway and told him they were delicious. They went through their secret handshake 3 times because Maya was nervous and it made her feel better. Marcus was dressed in pressed khakis and a button-down shirt, looking sharp because he'd always taught Maya that presentation mattered. He checked their boarding passes 4 times, made sure Maya's project binder was in her backpack, confirmed their hotel reservation twice. They arrived at Detroit Metropolitan Airport 2 hours before their flight, because Marcus didn't believe in cutting things close. The terminal was busy, families heading out for spring break, business travelers with their roller bags and coffee cups, the usual chaos of air travel. Maya was practically bouncing with excitement, talking a mile a minute about her presentation, about what she'd say to the judges, about whether she'd actually have a chance at winning. Marcus smiled and listened, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder as they made their way through the terminal. But then they got to security and something shifted. The TSA line was moving smoothly. Families ahead of them were passing through without issue. A white family with 3 kids and approximately 7,000 bags sailed through the metal detector with nothing more than a smile from the agent. A businessman in an expensive suit and carrying a leather briefcase got waved through after a quick bag check. Then it was Marcus and Maya's turn. Marcus placed his laptop in a bin, his shoes, his belt. Maya put her backpack on the conveyor belt, took off her light-up sneakers. They walked through the metal detector one at a time. No beeps. No alarms. Nothing. But then a TSA supervisor, a middle-aged white man with a mustache and a permanent scowl, stepped forward. "Sir, we need you to step aside for additional screening." Marcus's jaw tightened just for a second, but Maya saw it. She saw her father's shoulders tense, saw the way he took a slow breath before responding. "Of course. No problem." "Random selection," the supervisor said, though they both knew it wasn't random. Not when the white families had passed through without a second glance. Not when Marcus was the only black man in a pressed shirt and khakis being pulled aside. Maya stood there, watching as her father submitted to a pat-down, as they swabbed his hands for explosive residue, as they opened every pocket of his laptop bag and examined every item like he was smuggling something dangerous. She watched other travelers glance over with that look, that subtle judgment, that assumption. And she watched her father maintain his composure, his dignity, his calm. When they finally cleared him, it had been an extra 20 minutes. No apology. No explanation. Just a dismissive, "You're good to go." As they walked toward their gate, Maya asked quietly, "Why did they do that, Dad?" Marcus looked down at his daughter, and he could have lied. He could have said it really was random. But he'd never lied to her, and he wasn't going to start now. "Sometimes, baby, people make assumptions about us based on how we look. They see our skin and they think things that aren't true. That's not fair." "No, it's not. But you know what we do. Keep our heads up?" "That's right. Keep your head up and don't let anyone make you small." Maya nodded, but something settled in her chest that morning. An awareness, heavy and uncomfortable. This was the world her father had been preparing her for. They reached their gate with time to spare, found seats near the window and waited for boarding to begin. Marcus pulled out his laptop to review some work emails. Maya reviewed her presentation notes for the 100th time, mouthing the words silently. And in his pocket, Marcus's worn leather wallet rested, holding photographs of everyone he loved, completely unaware of the role it would play in the next few hours. When boarding began, they lined up in their zone, coach passengers filing onto the plane in that familiar shuffle. As they walked down the jet bridge, Maya's excitement was building again. This was her first time flying, and despite the incident at security, she was buzzing with questions. "Dad, how fast does the plane go? What altitude will we reach? How does the pressurization system work?" Marcus answered each question patiently as they entered the aircraft. First class was already seated, passengers sipping champagne and settling into their wide leather seats. Marcus and Maya made their way down the narrow aisle toward the back of the plane, to seats 23E and 23F. And that's when Maya first saw her. Karen Mitchell was standing near row 15, adjusting an overhead bin. She was 42 years old, blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, her flight attendant uniform crisp and immaculate. She had that practiced smile, the kind that flight attendants wear but that doesn't quite reach their eyes. When she turned and saw Marcus and Maya approaching, something flickered across her face. Just for a second. But Maya, observant as always, caught it. Karen had been a flight attendant for 15 years. She'd started this job with dreams of travel and adventure, of meeting interesting people and seeing the world. But 15 years later she was divorced, bitter, passed over for promotion 3 times, working the same coach routes she'd started with. Her ex-husband had remarried someone younger. Her adult son rarely called. She'd been rejected for the supervisor position just last month, losing out to a younger woman with half her experience. And she was angry. At the world, at her life, at everyone who seemed to have what she didn't. And here's the thing about that kind of bitterness. It needs a target. It needs someone to blame. And for Karen, that target had become those people, the ones she whispered about with her coworker Brenda in the galley, the ones she assumed didn't belong in the spaces she occupied. As Marcus and Maya passed her, Karen's smile tightened. She turned to Brenda, a younger flight attendant in her 30s who'd only been with the airline for 2 years. Brenda was standing nearby and Karen muttered just loud enough for her to hear, "Coach is getting fuller every year." Brenda looked uncomfortable, didn't respond, busied herself with checking seat belts. Marcus and Maya found their seats. 23E was the middle seat, 23F was the window. Marcus let Maya have the window because he knew how excited she was. As they settled in, Maya pressed her face to the small oval window, watching ground crew load luggage, watching other planes taxi by. In the aisle seat, 23D, sat an elderly Asian woman with kind eyes and silver hair pulled into a neat bun. She was knitting, her needles clicking softly. When Maya turned from the window, the woman smiled at her. "First time flying?" Maya nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, ma'am. We're going to Los Angeles. I'm presenting at a science competition." The woman's smile widened. "How wonderful. What's your project about?" And Maya launched into an explanation of renewable energy and her classroom electricity system, her words tumbling over each other in excitement. The woman, whose name was Mrs. Chen, listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions, encouraging Maya's passion. Marcus watched this interaction with a warm feeling in his chest. This was what he wanted for his daughter. People who saw her brilliance, who valued her mind, who treated her with kindness. But then Marcus needed to use the restroom before takeoff. He excused himself, carefully stepping over Mrs. Chen's legs to get to the aisle. And here's where everything started. Marcus reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet and placed it in the seat pocket in front of him. Just set it right there, in that mesh pocket where people put magazines and safety cards. He did it without thinking, just wanted to empty his pockets before walking to the bathroom. Maya saw him do it. She noticed everything her father did. Marcus made his way toward the back of the plane, and that's when Karen walked by their row. She was doing her pre-flight check, making sure overhead bins were closed, seat belts were fastened, tray tables were up. When she reached row 23, her eyes landed on that seat pocket. On the brown leather wallet sitting there. She paused. Just for a second. Her hand hovered near the pocket. And something in her mind, that bitter, angry part, whispered, "They probably can't even afford those seats. Probably using a stolen credit card. These people always taking things that don't belong to them." It wasn't rational. It wasn't based on anything real. But Karen had spent years building up these assumptions, these prejudices, layer by layer, excuse by excuse. And in that moment she made a choice. She glanced around. The cabin was busy, people still boarding, finding their seats. No one was paying attention to her. Her hand moved quickly, slipped into the seat pocket, closed around the wallet. She pulled it out, smooth and practiced, and slid it into her uniform pocket in one fluid motion. But someone saw her. Maya had been turned back toward the window, but something made her glance over her shoulder at that exact moment. And she saw Karen's hand slip into the seat pocket. Saw her take something. Saw the flash of brown leather before it disappeared into Karen's pocket. Maya's stomach dropped. That was her dad's wallet. She'd just watched someone take her dad's wallet. But Maya was 10 years old and she'd been taught to respect adults, to not make accusations, to give people the benefit of the doubt. So she sat there, frozen, her mind racing. Maybe she'd misunderstood. Maybe Karen had a reason. Maybe she was going to turn it into lost and found. Maybe. Marcus returned from the bathroom, settled back into his seat, completely unaware. The plane finished boarding, the cabin doors closed, and the flight attendants began their safety demonstration. Karen stood at the front of coach, demonstrating how to fasten a seatbelt and use an oxygen mask, her face composed and professional. Maya stared at her the entire time, her young mind trying to make sense of what she'd seen. The plane pushed back from the gate, taxied to the runway and took off smoothly. Maya should have been thrilled, watching the ground fall away, seeing her first glimpse of the world from above. but she couldn't focus. She kept glancing at Karen whenever the flight attendant walked by, kept checking to see if she'd returned the wallet. She didn't. An hour into the flight, the beverage service started. The flight attendants made their way down the aisle with their cart, offering drinks and small snacks. When Karen reached row 23, her entire demeanor changed. The professional smile disappeared. Her voice went cold. Beverages? The word came out clipped, almost hostile. Marcus, ever polite, didn't seem to notice. Ginger ale for my daughter, please. And I'll have coffee black. Karen poured the drinks and set them down hard enough that liquid sloshed over the rim of both cups. Didn't apologize. Just moved on to the next row where a young white couple sat. With them, her voice was warm, friendly, everything it hadn't been with Marcus and Maya. And what can I get for you two today? She cooed like they were old friends. Maya noticed. Of course she noticed. She looked at her father, saw his jaw tighten slightly, but he said nothing. Just handed Maya her ginger ale and took a careful sip of his coffee. Mrs. Chin noticed too. The elderly woman's knitting needles slowed, and she glanced between Marcus and Karen with knowing eyes. She'd seen this before. Had lived through it herself. But she said nothing, just reached over and patted Maya's hand gently. Another hour passed. Marcus was working on his laptop, reviewing some engineering schematics. Maya was trying to focus on her presentation notes but kept getting distracted, kept thinking about that wallet. Finally, Marcus reached down toward the seat pocket in front of him. Maya, you want some snacks? I'll grab some from the cart when it comes by. His hand slipped into the seat pocket. Found nothing. His brow furrowed. He checked again, pushing his hand deeper, feeling around. Empty. That's weird, he murmured, more to himself than to Maya. He started checking his other pockets. His jacket, his pants, his shirt pocket. Nothing. He leaned down, looked under his seat, under Maya's seat. Checked his laptop bag thoroughly. The wallet wasn't there. Maya watched her father's face shift from confusion to concern to something that looked like panic, though he was trying to hide it. She knew what was in that wallet. The photos of her mother, of her grandmother. The medical insurance card. His driver's license. His credit cards. Everything. Dad. Her voice was small. It's okay, baby. I can't find my wallet. He was trying to stay calm, but she could hear the strain in his voice. He pressed the call button above his seat. A soft chime sounded. They waited. A few minutes passed before Karen appeared, and when she did, her face was a mask of annoyance. Yes. Not, how can I help you? Not, what do you need? Just, yes, with an edge that could cut glass. Marcus kept his voice respectful, calm. I'm sorry to bother you, but my wallet was in this seat pocket and now it's gone. I'm wondering if maybe it fell out during takeoff, or if someone turned it in. Karen's eyes narrowed. Are you sure you brought it on the plane? Yes, absolutely. I had it in my pocket when we boarded and I placed it right here, he pointed to the seat pocket, before I went to the restroom. Well, I haven't seen it. Her tone was dismissive, final. Could you maybe check if anyone turned something in? It's very important. It has my medical insurance information, Sir, Karen cut him off. I'm sure if you left it somewhere, it'll turn up in lost and found after we land. But I haven't seen it and I can't just go searching the plane. I'm not asking you to search the plane. I'm just asking if you could check with the other flight attendants, see if anyone. Are you accusing another passenger of taking it? Her voice was getting louder now and people in nearby rows were starting to look over. Marcus's hands went up in a placating gesture. No. I'm just asking for help finding it. Well, I don't have it. And I'm very busy. We're in the middle of service. Karen gestured to the beverage cart still sitting in the aisle. I'll make a note and if it turns up, we'll let you know. She walked away before Marcus could respond. Just turned and walked away, leaving him sitting there, frustrated and helpless. Maya's small hand slipped into her father's. Dad, But she stopped. What was she going to say? That she'd seen Karen take it? Would her father even believe her? Would anyone? She was just a kid. And Karen was an adult, a flight attendant, someone in a position of authority. Who would believe a 10-year-old over a grown woman in uniform? So she said nothing. Just squeezed her father's hand and felt terrible about it. Marcus spent the next hour looking for that wallet. He searched everywhere again, even asked Mrs. Chen if she'd seen anything fall. Mrs. Chen said she hadn't but offered to help look. Other passengers nearby heard the commotion and were sympathetic but hadn't seen anything. Maya watched her father's stress build. She could see it in the way he kept rubbing his temples, the way his jaw stayed clenched. The wallet wasn't just about the money or the cards. Those could be replaced. It was about what the wallet represented. The photos of the people he loved. The tangible connection to his mother, to his wife, to his daughter's earliest days. And Maya knew where it was. She knew Karen had it. But she was scared. Scared of being wrong, scared of making things worse, scared of the confrontation that would follow if she said anything. So she stayed quiet, and the plane kept flying west, and Karen Mitchell continued her service like nothing had happened, that wallet burning a hole in her pocket. What Maya didn't know was that the situation was about to get much, much worse. About 2 hours into the flight, Marcus started to feel strange. At first it was just stress, he thought. Anxiety about the wallet, about being careful with money, about the competition. His chest felt tight, but he attributed it to being cramped in the middle seat, to the recycled air, to worry. But then it got worse. His breathing became labored. Sweat broke out on his forehead. His left arm started to ache. Maya noticed immediately. "Dad? Are you okay?" Marcus tried to wave her off. "I'm fine, baby. Just a little anxious. I'll be okay." But he wasn't okay. His vision was starting to blur. The cabin felt like it was tilting. He tried to take a deep breath and couldn't quite manage it. "Dad, you're sweating. Like a lot." Maya's voice was rising with panic. Marcus tried to stand, maybe to get to the bathroom, maybe to get some air, he wasn't sure. But the moment he got to his feet, his legs buckled. He grabbed the seat in front of him to steady himself, and Mrs. Chen immediately reached out to support him. "Sir? Sir, are you all right?" Mrs. Chen's voice was sharp with concern. Marcus tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come out right. He slumped back into his seat, his eyes unfocused. "Help!" Mrs. Chen called out loudly. "This man needs help." Maya was frozen, watching her father struggle, watching his chest heave as he fought for air. Terror, pure and absolute, flooded through her. Not her dad. Not her dad. She couldn't lose her dad. He was all she had. Passengers around them started to react. Someone pressed the call button repeatedly. Someone else shouted toward the front of the plane. And within seconds, Karen appeared. When she saw Marcus slumped in his seat, something shifted in her expression. Whatever personal prejudice she'd been operating under, her training kicked in. Medical emergency protocols. She could lose her job, face lawsuits if she didn't handle this right. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" Karen's voice was all business now. Marcus's eyes flickered toward her but didn't quite focus. Karen pulled out her radio. "We have a medical emergency in coach, row 23. Requesting any medical professionals on board." Then she looked at Maya. "Sweetie, I need you to stay calm, okay? We're going to help your dad." But Maya wasn't hearing her. Maya was watching her father struggle to breathe, watching his skin go pale, watching the only parent she had left possibly dying right in front of her. "Dad, no. No, no, no." Maya's voice was breaking. "Dad, please. Please be okay." A woman came rushing down the aisle from first class. She was in her 40s, black, professional-looking, moving with purpose and authority. "I'm a doctor. Let me through." People scrambled to make room. The doctor, whose name was Dr. Sarah Williams, knelt in the aisle next to Marcus's seat. She placed her fingers on his wrist, checking his pulse. Looked at his face, his coloring. Leaned in to listen to his breathing. "Sir, can you tell me your name?" Her voice was calm but urgent. Marcus tried to speak. Marcus, I'm Dr. Williams. I'm a cardiologist. I think you're having a cardiac event. Can you tell me if you have any history of heart problems?" Marcus's head moved slightly. Could have been a nod, could have been a tremor. Dr. Williams turned to Karen. "I need oxygen now. And does he have any medical information? Wallet, medical alert bracelet, anything that tells us about medications or conditions?" And that's when Maya's entire world crystallized into one sharp point of clarity. The wallet. Her father needed the information in his wallet. The card that listed his medications, his conditions, his allergies. The card that could save his life. And Karen had it. His wallet. Maya's voice cut through the chaos. "He has a medical card in his wallet." Karen's face went rigid. "I already told you I don't know where." "We need that information now," Dr. Williams interrupted, her voice sharp. "Does he have heart conditions? Is he on blood thinners? Beta blockers? Allergies to medications? I need to know before I can treat him properly." Karen fumbled with her radio. We don't have his wallet. He lost it." "Lost it?" Dr. Williams's eyes flashed. "Where? When?" "He said it was in his seat pocket, but it's not there now." Dr. Williams began chest compressions, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. Someone get me the AED from the forward galley. Now. Brenda, the other flight attendant, ran toward the front of the plane. The entire cabin had gone silent, everyone watching this emergency unfold. Some people had their phones out, recording. Others were praying. Maya was sobbing, reaching for her father's hand, trying to hold on to him. Mrs. Chun pulled Maya back gently, giving Dr. Williams room to work, but kept an arm around the child's shoulders. An oxygen mask appeared, placed over Marcus's face. The AED arrived. Dr. Williams attached the pads, checking the reading. Marcus's heart was in an abnormal rhythm, stressed but not stopped. Not yet. Where is that wallet? Dr. Williams demanded. Any medication information could be the difference between life and death. Karen's face was pale now. She looked panicked, trapped. I don't have it. We don't have it. And that's when something inside Maya broke. The fear, the helplessness, the knowledge of what she'd seen. The weight of staying silent when her father's life was on the line. It all crashed together, and 10-year-old Maya Thompson made a decision. She stood up, pulling free from Mrs. Chen's gentle grip. Her voice, small but clear, cut through the chaos. You do have it. Every person in that section of the plane turned to look at her. Karen's head snapped around. What? Maya's hands were shaking, but her voice got stronger. You have my dad's wallet. I saw you take it. The cabin went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Karen's face flushed red. Excuse me? Little girl, you need to sit down. This is a medical emergency and you're in the way. I saw you. Maya's voice was trembling but determined. When my dad went to the bathroom, you walked by our seats. You reached into the seat pocket and took his wallet. I saw you put it in your pocket. That's ridiculous. I would never. You took it. Maya's voice cracked with emotion, tears streaming down her face. I saw you. And now my dad might die because you won't give it back. Passengers around them started murmuring. The young white couple in the row behind were nodding. We saw her acting weird around that row, the young man said. An older businessman across the aisle, I saw her putting something in her pocket earlier. Karen was backing up, her hands raised. I found it on the floor, I was going to turn it in, Then where is it? Dr. Williams was standing now, her eyes fierce. You found it, where is it? This man is dying, and you're standing here lying about a wallet? I don't. Karen reached for her radio, a reflexive gesture, and that's when Maya saw it. The edge of brown leather, poking out of Karen's uniform pocket. Just the corner of it, visible for a split second as Karen's jacket shifted. Maya didn't think, didn't plan, didn't consider the consequences. She just moved. She lunged forward, her small body propelling her across the aisle. Her hand shot out, fingers closing around that edge of brown leather. She yanked. Art. Karen gasped, reached to stop her, but she was too slow. The wallet came free. Maya stumbled backward, clutching the wallet to her chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. Which, in that moment, it was. Because it held the information that might save her father. The cabin erupted in chaos. Passengers shouting, some at Karen, some in support of Maya. Karen's face went from shock to horror to anger to panic in the span of seconds. You can't just. Karen reached for the wallet, but Dr. Williams stepped between them. Stop. Right now. Dr. Williams's voice had the kind of authority that made people obey without thinking. Don't you dare touch that child. Mrs. Chen had pulled Maya back protectively, and Maya's hands were shaking so badly she could barely open the wallet. But she did. She fumbled through the cards and photos until she found it. The medical information card. Here. She thrust it at Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams took it, scanned it quickly, her eyes moving fast. He's on warfarin, blood thinners. Metoprolol for blood pressure. History of stress-induced arrhythmia. She immediately reached for her own bag, pulled out a small pill case. I need water now. Brenda appeared with a bottle of water, her face stricken. Dr. Williams crushed a pill, mixed it with water, carefully helped Marcus swallow. This is going to help, Marcus. Just breathe. Slow and steady. Maya stood there, the wallet still clutched in her hands, watching Dr. Williams work on her father with the information he needed, the information that had almost been denied to him. And all around them, passengers had their phones out. Recording. Every single moment was being captured. Karen backing away, her lies exposed. Maya's brave act. The chaos of the emergency. Karen Mitchell's career, her life as she knew it, was over. And she knew it. Brenda, she turned to the younger flight attendant, her voice desperate, I was going to return it. I found it on the floor and was going to. But Brenda, who had watched this all unfold, who had stayed silent when she should have spoken up, who had let her co-workers' prejudice go unchallenged, finally found her voice. Karen, stop. Just stop. Brenda's eyes were filled with tears. I saw you take it from the seat pocket. I saw you and I didn't say anything, and I should have. I should have said something immediately. She turned to Marcus, to Maya, to Dr. Williams. I'm so sorry. I saw her take it. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't want to cause trouble. I just wanted to keep my head down and do my job. And I almost let a man die because I was a coward. Karen was backing toward the galley now, her world crumbling around her. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I just thought. You thought what? Another passenger, a middle-aged black man in a business suit, stood up. You thought they didn't deserve to have that wallet? You thought you'd teach them some kind of lesson? You thought their lives didn't matter? More passengers were chiming in now, their anger palpable. The captain's voice came over the intercom, cutting through the noise. Ladies and gentlemen, we are making an emergency landing in Kansas City. Medical personnel will meet us at the gate. Please remain seated and keep the aisles clear. The plane banked sharply, beginning its descent. Karen was escorted to the back galley by another flight attendant, told to stay there, stay away from passengers. Brenda took over coordinating with the captain and with ground personnel. And Maya collapsed into Mrs. Chen's arms, the adrenaline leaving her body all at once. She was shaking, sobbing, the fear finally catching up to her. Mrs. Chen held her tight. You did good, sweetheart. You saved your father. You were so brave. Dr. Williams continued monitoring Marcus, and slowly, gradually, his breathing started to regulate. The medication was working. His color was returning. His eyes opened, focused. Maya? His voice was weak, barely a whisper through the oxygen mask. Maya scrambled to his side. Dad, I'm here. You're okay. You're going to be okay. Marcus's hand found hers, squeezed weakly. What happened? I got your wallet back, Daddy. Fresh tears streamed down her face. I got it back. Marcus's eyes closed again, but his grip on her hand stayed firm. He was going to be okay. Dr. Williams had what she needed. The plane was landing. Medical help was minutes away. Anne Karen Mitchell sat in the back galley, her career over, her life changed forever, because she'd let prejudice guide her actions and had been caught in the worst possible way. The plane landed harder than usual, the emergency vehicles already waiting on the tarmac. The moment the plane stopped, paramedics boarded. They had Marcus on a stretcher within minutes, Dr. Williams briefing them rapidly on his condition, showing them the medical card, explaining the treatment she'd already administered. Maya refused to leave her father's side. The paramedics didn't even try to separate them. They just let her hold his hand as they wheeled him off the plane. Dr. Williams went with them, staying to ensure continuity of care. And Mrs. Chen, bless her heart, gathered up all of Marcus and Maya's belongings from their seats, their bags, Maya's precious science binder, and followed them off the plane. As for Karen Mitchell, she was escorted off the aircraft by airport security. She was crying by then, trying to explain herself through the tears. Her life was falling apart in real time, and somewhere deep down she knew she had no one to blame but herself. The other passengers were asked to remain seated while airport security and airline management began assessing the situation. But nobody was going anywhere quietly. Multiple passengers had already pulled up their videos, showing them to the security officers. The evidence was overwhelming. Video after video of Karen's face as Maya confronted her. Video of Karen's hand going to her pocket. Video of Maya snatching that wallet back. Video of the chaos, the emergency, the truth being exposed at 35,000 feet. Statements were taken right there on the plane. Passenger after passenger volunteering information, corroborating what Maya had said. The young white couple. The businessman. Mrs. Chen. Everyone who had witnessed what happened was eager to tell their story. Karen was led away in what could only be described as disgrace. Her excuses fell flat against the mountain of evidence. I found it on the floor. I was going to return it. It was just a misunderstanding. None of it mattered. A child had been traumatized. A man had nearly died. And the whole world was about to watch it happen. Brenda gave her statement too, her voice shaking as she admitted what she'd seen and what she'd failed to do. I knew it was wrong, she told the investigators. I saw her take it from the seat pocket, not from the floor. And I said nothing. I was afraid of conflict, afraid of Karen's reaction, afraid of making trouble. I let my fear put a man's life at risk. The captain came back to personally apologize to the remaining passengers for the disruption. An airline representative arrived, already in corporate damage control mode. They interviewed Maya in the terminal while Marcus was being treated, and this exhausted 10-year-old girl, still in her purple dinosaur hoodie, told them everything with a clarity that belied her age. The representative kept saying how sorry they were, how this didn't represent the airline's values, how they would make this right. But Maya was barely listening. All she could think about was her father, somewhere in this strange city, in a hospital she'd never seen, fighting for his life. At the Kansas City Hospital emergency room, Maya sat in a plastic chair that was too big for her, her feet dangling above the floor. Dr. Williams had stayed with her, refusing to leave until Marcus was stable and Maya had someone to look after her. Mrs. Chen had come too, this elderly woman who had no obligation to them whatsoever but who had gathered their belongings, followed them to the hospital, and was now sitting beside a terrified child offering what comfort she could. The waiting room was cold and sterile, that particular hospital smell of antiseptic and anxiety hanging in the air. Maya clutched her father's wallet in both hands, holding onto it like a lifeline. The photos inside, her baby picture, her mother's wedding photo, her grandmother's prayer card, they were all still there. Safe. Because she'd gotten it back in time. The shock was starting to wear off now, and in its place came a flood of emotions Maya couldn't control. She started crying, really crying, the kind of deep sobs that shake your whole body. Everything she'd been holding together on that plane, all the fear and the bravery and the adrenaline, it all came crashing down at once. Dr. Williams sat beside her, pulled her close. "You saved your father's life. You know that, right?" Maya's voice came out broken, barely a whisper. "What if I hadn't seen her take it? What if I was too scared to say anything? What if I didn't get it back in time?" "But you did," Dr. Williams said firmly. "You did see it. You weren't too scared. You got it back exactly when it mattered." Maya, grown adults freeze in situations like that. Trained professionals hesitate. But you, a 10-year-old girl, you stood up and did what needed to be done. That's not ordinary. That's extraordinary. Mrs. Chin reached over and patted Maya's knee. "Your mother would be so proud of you, sweetheart." Maya cried harder at the mention of her mom. She barely remembered Angela, just flashes of warmth and the smell of chocolate chip cookies and a voice singing lullabies. But in that moment, she wished more than anything that her mother was there to hold her. Time moved strangely in that waiting room. Minutes felt like hours. Every time a door opened, Maya's head snapped up, hoping for news. Doctors and nurses moved past, attending to other emergencies, other families, other crises. And Maya just sat there, waiting, praying, holding on to hope with both hands. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a nurse approached them. "Maya Thompson?" Maya was on her feet instantly. "Is my dad okay? Is he going to be all right?" The nurse smiled, a real smile, warm and reassuring. "He's stable. He's asking for you." Maya didn't wait for more information. She took off running toward the room the nurse indicated, Dr. Williams and Mrs. Chen following behind. She burst through the door and there he was. Her father. Lying in a hospital bed with an oxygen tube in his nose and 4 lines in his arm and monitors beeping steadily beside him. But his eyes were open. His eyes were clear. And when he saw his daughter, he smiled. "There's my little professor." Maya climbed onto the bed, careful of the wires and tubes, and curled into her father's side. She didn't say anything at first. Couldn't say anything. Just held on to him and cried with relief. Marcus's arm came around her, weak but present. "They told me what you did, baby. What you did on that plane. I had to get it back, Dad." Her voice was muffled against his hospital gown. "You needed your medicine card. You needed the information. You were so brave." His voice cracked. "Braver than I ever taught you to be. Braver than anyone should have to be at 10 years old." Maya looked up at him, her face streaked with tears. "You taught me to stand up for what's right. Even when I'm scared. You always said that." "I did say that." Marcus's eyes were wet too now. "But I never thought you'd have to prove it like this. I'm so sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I'm just glad you're okay, Daddy. I can't lose you too." They held each other in that hospital room, father and daughter, their bond tested by fire and coming out stronger. Dr. Williams stood in the doorway, giving them their moment. Mrs. Chin waited in the hall, dabbing at her own eyes. After a while, the doctors came in to explain what had happened. Marcus had experienced a stress-induced cardiac event, exacerbated by his existing conditions. The anxiety over the missing wallet, the confrontation, the feeling of helplessness, it had all triggered a dangerous episode. But because Dr. Williams had the right information at the right time, Because she knew about his blood thinners and his beta blockers and his history, she'd been able to stabilize him until the plane landed. The information on that medical card, the doctor said, made a significant difference in how quickly we could treat you. Without it, we would have had to run tests, wait for results, potentially administer medications that could have interacted badly with what you were already taking. Having that information immediately allowed for faster, safer intervention. In other words, Maya getting that wallet back hadn't just been about justice. It had genuinely, medically saved her father's life. Marcus would need to stay overnight for observation. Their flight was obviously missed, but the airline was already arranging accommodations and new tickets. They'd be taken care of. The least the airline could do, given everything. That night, Maya slept in a chair beside her father's hospital bed. The nurses brought her a blanket and a pillow, offered her a cot in the family room, but she wouldn't leave Marcus's side. Every time she started to drift off, she'd jerk awake and check that he was still breathing, still there, still with her. It was a long night, but by morning Marcus was doing much better. They video called Maya's grandmother, Marcus's mother, from the hospital room. The whole extended family was on the line, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone talking over each other, crying, thanking God, demanding details. Maya's grandmother kept saying, "Baby girl, you did what you had to do. Don't ever let anyone make you doubt that. You hear me? You saved your daddy's life." The story was already going viral. Passenger videos had been posted to social media the night before, and by morning they were everywhere. News outlets were picking it up. Hashtags were trending. Justice for Maya. Brave Maya. People across the country, across the world, watching this 10-year-old girl confront an adult who had wronged her family. Maya didn't fully understand the scope of what was happening. She was exhausted, traumatized, just focused on her father getting better. But Marcus saw the notifications flooding his phone, saw the news alerts, saw his daughter's face on screens across America, and he felt a mix of pride and protectiveness he couldn't quite articulate. Some of the responses were beautiful. Messages of support, stories of solidarity, people sharing their own experiences with discrimination and finding courage in Maya's example. But some of the responses were ugly. There are always ugly responses. People defending Karen, questioning Maya's account, finding ways to blame Marcus and Maya for what happened to them. Marcus shielded Maya from the worst of it, but he couldn't shield her from all of it. They were released from the hospital the next day. The airline put them up in a nice hotel, arranged new flights, covered all expenses. A representative called personally to apologize and ask what else they could do. It was the beginning of what would become a long process of corporate damage control and legal negotiations. But right now, all Maya cared about was one thing: the science competition. They'd missed it. She'd worked for 6 months on her project, spent countless hours perfecting her prototype and her presentation, and they'd missed it because of everything that happened. She was devastated. Sitting in that Kansas City hotel room, she finally let herself cry about it. Not about the plane, not about the emergency, but about the dream she'd lost. The opportunity she'd worked so hard for gone. Marcus watched his daughter cry and felt his heart break all over again. He'd taken this trip to give her a chance at her dream. Instead, he'd nearly died and she'd had to be braver than any child should ever have to be. He picked up the phone and called the competition organizers in Los Angeles. "This is Marcus Thompson. My daughter Maya was supposed to present yesterday, but we had a medical emergency on our flight." The person on the other end went quiet for a moment. Then, "Mr. Thompson, we know who you are. We've seen the news. We're so sorry for what you and your daughter went through. I appreciate that. But my daughter, she worked so hard on this project. 6 months. It was everything to her. Is there any way, any possibility?" "Actually, Mr. Thompson, we were going to call you. We've arranged a special presentation slot for Maya tomorrow evening. We want to give her the chance she deserves." Marcus covered the phone, looked at Maya. "Baby girl, how would you feel about still presenting at that competition?" Maya's eyes went wide. "What? But we missed it. They're giving you a special slot. Tomorrow evening. If you want it." For the first time since everything happened, Maya smiled. A real smile, the kind that lit up her whole face. Yes, I want it." They flew to Los Angeles the next morning. Maya spent the entire flight reviewing her presentation notes, practicing her speech, making sure she was ready. Marcus sat beside her, still weak from his ordeal but determined to be there for his daughter. When they arrived at the competition venue, there was a buzz in the air. Word had spread. People recognized them. Other competitors, parents, judges, they all knew Maya's story. Some approached to offer support. Others kept a respectful distance. but Maya could feel eyes on her everywhere she went. She was nervous. More nervous than she'd ever been. Standing backstage, waiting for her slot, she turned to her father. "Dad, what if I can't do it? After everything that happened, what if I freeze? What if I forget everything?" Marcus knelt down to her level, took her hands in his. "Maya, listen to me. You stood up to a grown woman who wronged us. You saved my life. You did that at 35,000 feet with the whole world watching. You can definitely talk about renewable energy." Maya took a deep breath. Then another. Okay, I can do this. "You can do anything, little professor. I believe in you." She walked out onto that stage and the audience fell silent. There were more people than usual, word having spread about the special presentation. Maya stepped up to the microphone, looked out at the sea of faces, and for a moment, the fear threatened to overwhelm her. But then she saw her father in the front row, still pale from his ordeal, still recovering, but there. He gave her a thumbs up and that familiar smile, and something settled in Maya's chest. She began to speak. Her presentation was about converting classroom body heat and movement into usable electricity. She explained the science, demonstrated her prototype, showed her data and results. Her voice started shaky but grew stronger with each passing minute. By the end, she was speaking with passion and confidence, her love for science shining through every word. When she finished, the audience erupted in applause. Standing ovation. Not just because of what she'd been through, but because her project was genuinely brilliant, her presentation genuinely compelling. She didn't win first place. That went to a high school senior with a project on cancer detection. But Maya received an honorable mention and a special recognition award for courage under adversity. When they called her name, the applause was thunderous. More importantly, she'd done it. She'd faced her fear and she'd succeeded. After everything that had tried to break her, she was still standing. Back home in Detroit 2 weeks later, the real aftermath began. Marcus and Maya met with lawyers. The evidence was overwhelming. Multiple passenger videos, witness statements, Brenda's confession, Karen's own admissions. The airline had already fired Karen Mitchell and issued a public apology, but there was talk of lawsuits, of settlements, of making sure this never happened to anyone else. The airline offered a significant settlement. Money for Marcus's medical expenses. Money for trauma counseling for both of them. A contribution to Maya's college fund. A commitment to implementing new discrimination training across all their staff. Marcus considered his options carefully. He could sue for more, drag it out in court, make an example of them. Part of him wanted to. Part of him wanted Karen Mitchell and everyone like her to face the full consequences of their prejudice. But he also thought about Maya. About what a prolonged legal battle would do to her, keeping this trauma alive month after month, year after year. About whether revenge would bring them peace or just more pain. In the end, they accepted the settlement. But they also agreed to use their platform, their sudden visibility, to advocate for change. Marcus did interviews, always with Maya's permission, talking about what happened, talking about raising a black daughter in America, talking about the daily calculations and constant vigilance required just to exist safely in spaces that should be safe for everyone. Maya was part of some of those conversations too, when she wanted to be. A 10-year-old speaking with clarity and composure about injustice, about fear, about finding courage when it mattered most. People were moved by her. Inspired by her. She was becoming a symbol, whether she'd asked to be one or not. A few weeks after they returned home, Maya received an unexpected message. It was from Brenda, the flight attendant who had witnessed Karen take the wallet and said nothing until it was almost too late. Brenda wanted to meet with them, to apologize in person. Maya wasn't sure she wanted to see her. This was the woman who could have stopped everything before it started, who could have spoken up when she saw Karen take the wallet, who had chosen silence over truth. But Marcus left the decision to Maya, and after thinking about it for a long time, Maya said yes. They met at a coffee shop near their house. Brenda looked different out of uniform. Smaller somehow. Older. She'd clearly been struggling. "I quit the airline," Brenda said, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. I couldn't be there anymore. Not after what happened. Not knowing I could have prevented all of it." Maya watched her carefully, not sure what to feel. Anger? Sympathy? Both? "I've been thinking a lot about why I stayed silent," Brenda continued. "I've been silent my whole life when I see things that are wrong. It's easier, you know? Keeping your head down. Not making waves. Telling yourself it's not your problem, not your fight." She looked directly at Maya. "Watching you, a 10-year-old child, be braver than I've ever been in my life, it changed something in me. Why didn't you say something sooner?" Maya asked. When you first saw her take it? Brenda's face crumpled. I was scared. Of conflict. Of Karen's reaction. Of losing my job. All terrible reasons. I told myself it wasn't my business, that maybe I'd misunderstood, that it would work itself out. And I almost let a man die because I was a coward. The word hung in the air. Coward. It was harsh, but Brenda had said it about herself. But you did tell the truth when it mattered most, Maya said slowly. On the plane when everyone was looking at Karen. You told them she took it. Only because you were brave first. You gave me permission to be honest by being honest yourself. They sat in silence for a moment. Marcus watched his daughter process this adult conversation, this complicated moral territory. I'm working with a non-profit now, Brenda finally said. Training companies on bystander intervention. How to speak up when you see something wrong. How to not be what I was. She paused. I was wondering if I could share your story with your permission in my trainings? Not for publicity or anything. Just because I think people need to hear it. Need to understand what happens when we stay silent. Maya looked at her father. He gave her a slight nod, leaving the decision to her. Okay, Maya said. You can share it. Thank you. Brenda's eyes were wet. And Maya, I am so deeply sorry. For what Karen did. For what I failed to do. For what you had to go through. You deserved better from the adults around you. I know, Maya said simply. And then after a long pause, I forgive you. She wasn't sure she fully meant it yet. Forgiveness was complicated, and she was still only 10 years old trying to understand very adult pain. But she knew holding on to anger wouldn't help her, wouldn't change what happened, wouldn't make the world any safer. So she chose to let it go. Or at least to start letting it go. Brenda left the coffee shop that day with tears streaming down her face. Not because she'd been absolved, but because a child had shown her more grace than she deserved. Dad, Maya asked on the walk home, do you think people can really change? Marcus thought about it carefully before answering. I think people can choose to be better. Whether they actually change deep down, I don't know. But they can choose differently. Make different decisions. And maybe that's enough. A package arrived at their house a few days later. It was from Mrs. Chin, the elderly woman who had sat next to them on the plane, who had held Maya during the worst moments, who had gathered their belongings and followed them to the hospital. Inside the package was a beautifully knitted blanket. It was purple, Maya's favorite color, with a pattern of little dinosaurs across it. Soft and warm and made with obvious care. There was a note tucked inside. Dear Maya, for the bravest little professor I've ever had the honor of meeting. May this blanket keep you warm in a world that can sometimes be cold. 40 years ago, I became a teacher because I wanted to help young people find their voices. In all those years, I never met a student who reminded me more powerfully why that work matters than you did on that airplane. Never lose your voice, sweetheart. The world needs it. With all my love and admiration, Mrs. Chin. P.S. I've enclosed a small contribution to your college fund. Please use it to keep learning, keep growing, and keep being exactly who you are. The check was for $5,000. Maya read the note 3 times, tears streaming down her face. This woman she'd known for only a few hours had been changed by what happened that day. Had been moved enough to knit a blanket, write a letter, contribute to a future she'd never see. See, Marcus said, pulling his daughter close. For every person who carries hate, there are more who carry love. Never forget that. Dr. Sarah Williams stayed in touch too. She'd given Marcus her card at the hospital, told him to call if they ever needed anything. What started as a professional courtesy became something more. A few months after the incident, Dr. Williams invited Maya to shadow her at the hospital for a day. Maya was fascinated. She'd always loved science, but she'd thought of it in terms of physics and engineering, renewable energy and mechanical systems. Medicine was a whole different world of science, and watching Dr. Williams' work opened Maya's eyes to possibilities she'd never considered. They talked a lot that day. About being a black woman in medicine. About the barriers Dr. Williams had faced, the microaggressions, the assumptions, the patients who demanded a real doctor when they saw her walk in. But also about the joy of it. The privilege of saving lives. The power of being excellent in a field that didn't always expect excellence from people who looked like her. I thought I wanted to be an environmental scientist, Maya confessed. But now I'm not sure. There's so much to learn, so many ways to make a difference. Dr. Williams smiled. You don't have to decide now. You're 10 years old. The world is going to offer you 1,000 different paths, and you get to choose which ones to explore. But I'll tell you this, whatever you decide, the world needs minds like yours. Brilliant, curious, brave minds. Don't let anyone tell you different. She offered to mentor Maya through middle school and high school, to be a resource and a guide as Maya figured out her path. It was a gift that would shape Maya's future in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The viral impact of Maya's story continued to ripple outward in the weeks and months that followed. News segments analyzed what had happened, discussing issues of racial bias in service industries, implicit prejudice, the courage of bystanders who speak up versus those who stay silent. Congressional representatives cited the incident in discussions about discrimination policies. Airlines across the country began implementing new training protocols, new accountability measures, new commitments to treating all passengers with dignity. Maya received letters from children all over the country. From black kids who said she was their hero. From kids of all backgrounds sharing their own experiences with unfairness, with being underestimated, with finding courage when it mattered. From white children who said they were sorry for what happened and promised to be better, to do better. Marcus and Maya read the letters together, hundreds of them eventually, each one a reminder that their worst moment had somehow become a source of hope for others. "I didn't do it to be famous," Maya said one evening, overwhelmed by the attention. "I just wanted your wallet back." "I know, baby. But sometimes one brave act echoes louder than we expect. Sometimes standing up in your own moment gives other people permission to stand up in theirs." When Maya returned to school after missing 2 weeks, things were different. Some kids treated her like a celebrity, wanted selfies and autographs, asked her to tell the story over and over. Others were awkward, didn't know what to say, gave her a wide berth. And then there was Tyler. Tyler was a white boy who'd been Maya's friend since 2nd grade. They'd done science projects together, played at each other's houses, shared lunches when one of them forgot their own. But when Maya came back to school, Tyler avoided her. Wouldn't meet her eyes. Sat on the other side of the cafeteria. Maya finally confronted him at lunch one day. "Why are you being weird? We're friends." "At least I thought we were." Tyler looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "My dad said, he said that lady probably had a reason. That you shouldn't have made such a big deal. That you were probably lying about seeing her take it." The words hit Maya like a punch to the stomach. Tyler's dad thought she was a liar. Thought Karen was justified. Thought Maya had made a big deal out of nothing. Maya's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "Your dad is wrong. I wasn't lying. She took my dad's wallet and my dad almost died because of it. That was a big deal. That was the biggest deal." Tyler looked conflicted, caught between what his father had told him and the friend standing in front of him. "I don't know what to believe," he finally said and walked away. Maya watched him go, her heart aching. This was a loss she hadn't anticipated. Not everyone was going to be on her side. Not everyone was going to see the truth the way she did. Some people would choose to believe what was comfortable rather than what was right. Her best friend Jasmine, a black girl she'd known since kindergarten, sat down beside her. "Some people will never get it," Jasmine said quietly. "That's their loss, not yours." Maya nodded, but something inside her shifted that day. She understood, in a way she hadn't before, that standing up for the truth sometimes costs you. That being brave doesn't mean everyone will applaud you. That the world is complicated and painful and not always fair. But she also understood that she wouldn't change what she did. Not for Tyler's friendship, not for anyone's approval. She'd done what was right and she'd do it again. Marcus was struggling too, though he tried to hide it from Maya. The nightmares started a few weeks after they got home. He'd wake up gasping, chest tight, reliving that moment on the plane when he couldn't breathe, when everything was going dark, when he thought he might never see his daughter again. But worse than the nightmares about himself were the nightmares about Maya. About her having to be that brave, that scared, that alone. About what could have happened if Karen had reacted violently. About all the ways the world could hurt his little girl, and how powerless he felt to stop it. He started seeing a therapist, something he'd resisted his whole life. Black men don't do therapy, that's what he'd been taught. You handle your business, you stay strong, you don't show weakness. But he couldn't handle this alone. Not anymore. In therapy he talked about more than just the plane. He talked about raising Maya by himself. About losing Angela. About the constant vigilance of being a black man in America, teaching his daughter to navigate a world that didn't always see her fairly. About grief he'd never fully processed, fears he'd never fully acknowledged. It was hard work. Painful work. But slowly, session by session, Marcus started to heal. Not just from the trauma of the flight, but from years of wounds he'd been carrying alone. He became an advocate for black men's mental health, speaking at community centers and churches about the importance of seeking help. "We teach our children to be strong," he'd say. "But strength isn't about carrying everything alone. Strength is knowing when to ask for support. And what happened to Karen Mitchell? Maya wondered about her sometimes. The woman who had taken her father's wallet. The woman whose prejudice had nearly cost Marcus his life. The woman whose face had been plastered across news coverage and social media, becoming synonymous with casual racism caught on camera. Karen lost her job, of course. That happened almost immediately. The airline couldn't keep her after what she'd done, not with the video evidence, not with the public outcry. But the consequences didn't stop there. Karen's face was recognized everywhere she went. People shouted at her in grocery stores. She couldn't get hired anywhere in the service industry. No one wanted to be associated with her. Her adult children, embarrassed and angry, stopped taking her calls. Her social circle, such as it was, disappeared. She posted a video apology online, tearful and apologetic, claiming she'd made a terrible mistake in a moment of weakness. Some people said she deserved everything she got. Others said she'd been punished enough, that she should be allowed to move on. Maya watched the apology video once. She didn't feel satisfaction or pity. She felt sadness mostly. Sad that it had taken all this for Karen to maybe, possibly, start examining her own prejudice. Sad that Karen's moment of cruelty had caused so much pain. Sad that the world worked this way at all. She didn't forgive Karen. Wasn't sure she ever would. But she also chose not to carry hatred. Hatred was heavy, and Maya had too much life ahead of her to spend it carrying Karen Mitchell's weight. 6 months passed. Life slowly returned to something like normal. Maya's school was hosting their annual science fair, and this year Maya wasn't just a competitor. She was helping younger students with their projects, sharing what she'd learned, encouraging kids who were nervous about presenting. A second grader named Lily, a tiny white girl with blonde pigtails and anxious eyes, was particularly worried. Her project was about how plants grow toward light, and she'd done all the work herself, carefully documenting each step. But she was terrified of standing in front of people. What if they don't like it? Lily asked Maya. What if they're mean? Maya knelt down to Lily's level, remembering her own fear before the competition in LA, remembering standing in that airplane aisle shaking with terror. Then you be brave anyway, Maya said. Being scared doesn't mean you stop. It means you're doing something that matters. But I'm so little. Maya smiled. I was pretty little when I was brave. You don't have to be big to do big things. She helped Lily practice her presentation over and over, coached her on making eye contact and speaking clearly, reassured her that it was okay to be nervous as long as she didn't let the nervousness win. During the fair, another student made a dismissive comment about Lily's project. Plants growing toward light? That's baby stuff. Everyone knows that already. Lily's face crumpled and Maya stepped in immediately. Actually, understanding phototropism and designing experiments to test it is exactly what real scientists do. Lily's documentation is excellent, and her conclusions are supported by her data. That's not baby stuff. That's science. The other student backed off, and Lily looked at Maya with something like worship in her eyes. Lily ended up presenting her project with confidence and clarity. She didn't win a ribbon, but she finished and she was proud of herself. Her mother found Maya afterward, tears in her eyes. Thank you for helping her, the mother said. You have a gift for lifting people up. Maya realized something in that moment. Helping others find their voice helped heal her own wounds. Every time she encouraged someone else to be brave, she remembered why her own bravery had mattered. One evening, in the kitchen where they'd shared so many terrible pancakes and important conversations, Maya asked her father the question she'd been carrying for months. Dad, do you wish I hadn't grabbed the wallet? Marcus stopped what he was doing and gave her his full attention. What do you mean? Like, if I had just let it go, you wouldn't have been so stressed. Maybe your heart wouldn't have, you know. Maybe none of the bad stuff would have happened. Marcus crossed the kitchen, knelt down to her level, took her hands in his. Baby girl, no. Listen to me carefully. You are not responsible for my heart condition. That was something I've been dealing with for years, and it was going to cause problems eventually regardless. What happened on that plane, the stress of losing the wallet, yes, that triggered it sooner. But you didn't cause it. And more importantly, you made sure I had the information doctors needed to save my life. You didn't make things worse. You made them better. Maya's eyes were wet. But now everyone knows our story. Tyler's dad thinks I'm a troublemaker. People online say mean things. Everything is different. Everything is different, Marcus agreed. And some of that difference is hard. But Maya, do you know what I see when I look at you? I see a girl who stood up when it mattered. Who didn't let fear or size or age stop her from doing what was right. I see my daughter and I am bursting with pride. Every single day. Maya fell into his arms, crying. Marcus held her tight, his own eyes wet. You're 10 years old. You shouldn't have had to be that brave. I wish I could have protected you from all of it. But you were brave anyway, and now you know something important. You have a voice and it's powerful. Use it wisely. After a while, Maya pulled back and asked the harder question, the one underneath all the others. Will things like this keep happening? Because we're black. Marcus took a long breath. He could lie. He could soften it. But he'd never lied to her, and he wasn't going to start now. Sometimes, yes. There will be people who see your skin and make assumptions. People who treat you unfairly for no reason other than prejudice. I wish I could tell you it won't happen, but I'd be lying. Maya nodded slowly, accepting this truth she'd already started to understand. But, Marcus continued, you will also find people like Dr. Williams. Like Mrs. Chin. Like the passengers on that plane who stood up for us, who recorded the truth, who made sure the world saw what really happened. You will find allies and friends and people who see you for the brilliant, brave, beautiful person you are. The world isn't all darkness, Maya. There's so much light too. You just have to keep looking for it. They finished cooking dinner together, the conversation settling into comfortable quiet. The kitchen felt warm and safe, a refuge from a complicated world. Their bond, already unbreakable, had been tested and proven stronger. 1 year later, Maya stood in Detroit Metropolitan Airport again. She was 11 now, a little taller, a little older, heading into middle school in the fall. But more than her appearance had changed. There was a steadiness to her, a confidence that hadn't been there before. She'd been through something that would have broken many adults, and she'd come out the other side still standing. This time, they were flying to Washington, D.C. Maya had been invited to speak at a national conference on youth advocacy. Her story had inspired a movement and people wanted to hear her voice. Marcus was healthy and thriving, managing his heart condition with medication and lifestyle changes, attending therapy regularly, present for every moment of his daughter's life. They approached security together, and Maya felt a familiar tension in her chest. Memories of that random, extra screening a year ago surfaced. But this time they passed through without incident. No additional searches. No suspicious looks. Just routine processing and a clear path to their gate. As they walked through the terminal, Maya noticed a black family being pulled aside. A mother, a father, 2 young kids. The parents looked frustrated, the kids embarrassed and confused. Security officers surrounded them, asking questions, going through their bags. Maya stopped walking. Watched for a moment. Her father stopped beside her. Without really deciding to, Maya walked over. Excuse me, is everything okay here? One of the security officers looked at her, annoyed. Miss, please step back. This doesn't concern you. I just wanted to make sure this family is being treated fairly, Maya said, her voice calm and clear. The officer's expression shifted, uncertain how to respond to a child questioning his authority. Other travelers were starting to notice, pausing to watch. Miss, I need you to step back. I will. Once I know they're being treated fairly. The moment hung in the air. The black family was watching Maya now, something like hope in their eyes. The officer looked around, saw the attention gathering, made a quick calculation. We're done here, he said brusquely, waving the family through. You can go. The family gathered their belongings quickly, the mother catching Maya's eye and nodding a silent thank you as they walked away. Marcus pulled Maya aside. You can't fight every battle, baby. Maya looked up at him. But I can try. He didn't argue. Just smiled, pride evident in his eyes, and guided her toward their gate. They boarded their flight, and by coincidence, it was the same airline they'd flown a year ago. When the lead flight attendant saw Maya's name on the manifest, recognition flickered in her eyes. She approached them personally once they were seated. Miss Thompson? The attendant was a black woman in her 50s, warm and professional. My name is Patricia. I just wanted to say, on behalf of this airline, we're honored to have you flying with us. What you did last year, it changed a lot of policies. Made things better for all of us. Maya felt embarrassed by the attention. I just wanted my dad's wallet back. Patricia smiled. You did more than that, sweetheart. You reminded us all to be brave. The flight was uneventful and peaceful. Maya worked on her speech for the conference while Marcus read beside her. When they landed in D.C., there were journalists waiting, cameras flashing, reporters calling out questions. Maya handled it with poise, answering briefly and politely, not letting the attention overwhelm her. Do you consider yourself an activist now? One reporter asked. Maya thought carefully before answering. I consider myself someone who stood up one time when it mattered. I hope I'll keep standing up when it matters. But mostly I'm just a kid who loves science and wants to make the world better. The conference was held in a large auditorium, packed with advocates, educators, policymakers, and young people from across the country. Maya stood backstage looking out at the crowd, her nerves rising. This was different from the science competition. This wasn't about renewable energy or classroom experiments. This was about her story. Her pain. Her bravery. Laid bare for hundreds of strangers. But then she thought about Mrs. Chen's letter. About Dr. Williams's mentorship. About all the children who had written to her, finding courage in her example. Maybe her story could help them. Maybe her voice could make a difference. She walked out onto that stage, stepped up to the microphone and began to speak. "A lot of people call me brave," she said. "Reporters write about the brave little girl on the airplane. Social media posts call me a hero. But I want to tell you something, I was terrified. The whole time I was so scared I could barely breathe." The audience was silent, hanging on her words. Brave isn't about not being scared. Brave is being scared and doing it anyway because someone you love needs you. Because something is wrong and staying silent is worse. Because your voice matters even if it's small, even if it shakes. She told her story then. Not the sensationalized version from the news but the real version. The fear. The doubt. The moment she almost stayed silent. The choice she made to speak up anyway. "I'm 11 years old," she said. "I shouldn't have had to do what I did. And maybe that's the real problem. That kids have to be brave because adults forgot how. That children are standing up against injustice because grown-ups are looking the other way." The room was absolutely still. "So here's what I want to say, if you see something wrong, say something. Don't wait for a 10-year-old to do it for you. Don't stay silent because it's easier. Don't look away because it's not your problem. Use your voice. Stand up. Speak out." She paused, looking out at the crowd. "And if you're a kid watching this and you're scared because the world isn't always fair, I see you. I know you. Keep being brave. Keep using your voice. We're going to change things. Together." The applause started slowly, then built to a roar. Standing ovation. People on their feet, cheering, crying. Maya found her father in the front row, tears streaming down his face, pride radiating from every inch of him. She smiled at him and he smiled back. That's who she did it for. Then and now. Always. The years that followed were full of growth and change. At 12, Maya started a youth advocacy group at her school, teaching other kids about speaking up and bystander intervention. At 14, she gave a speech at her middle school graduation about the power of young voices. At 16, she won a national science competition with a project on environmental justice, combining her love of science with her passion for fairness. Dr. Williams stayed in her life, mentoring her through high school science competitions, writing her college recommendation letters, becoming something like the Aunt Maya had never had. Mrs. Chen visited them in Detroit once a year, bringing new hand-knitted gifts and homemade dumplings, becoming honorary family. Tyler, the boy who'd walked away in elementary school, approached Maya in their junior year of high school. He was different now, grown up, thoughtful in a way he hadn't been as a child. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I believed my dad over you back then. I was wrong. What happened to you and your father was real, and I should have been a better friend." Maya looked at him, remembering the hurt of his abandonment. But she also saw the growth, the willingness to change. "Thank you," she said. "I forgive you." And she meant it. Not because what happened didn't matter, but because holding on to resentment was exhausting, and she'd rather make room for new beginnings. When Maya was 18, she stood on a stage again. This time it was her high school graduation and she was valedictorian. "8 years ago, on an airplane, I learned that the world isn't always fair," she told her classmates. "A woman took my father's wallet because of what she assumed about us based on our skin. My dad almost died because of her prejudice, and I had to be braver than any 10-year-old should have to be." The auditorium was silent, listening. "But I also learned that courage doesn't have an age requirement. That speaking up matters even when your voice shakes. That the people who believe in you, family, teachers, strangers on planes, can change your life forever." She looked out at her classmates, these young people about to scatter across the country and the world. "We're going into a world full of problems. Climate change, injustice, division, fear. And I know it can feel overwhelming, like nothing we do matters. But I'm here to tell you, it matters. Every time you stand up for what's right, it matters. Every time you use your voice for someone who can't, it matters. Every small act of courage adds up." She took a breath. "So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you're not scared. Stand up scared. Speak up shaking. Change the world imperfectly. Because imperfect action is infinitely better than perfect silence. The applause was thunderous. Marcus was in the front row, tears streaming just like always. That fall, Maya left for MIT, full scholarship, double major in engineering and social justice. She'd found a way to combine everything she loved. Science, advocacy, making the world better. The morning of her departure, Marcus drove her to the airport. They walked through Detroit Metropolitan together one last time before everything changed. At the gate, Marcus hugged his daughter tighter than he ever had. "I'm so proud of who you've become," he said, voice rough with emotion. "You taught me how, Dad. You taught me to stand up, speak out, and never back down from what's right. I also taught you my terrible pancake recipes." She laughed through her tears. Those two. Boarding was called. They held each other for one more moment, father and daughter, the bond between them tested by fire and stronger for it. Then Maya walked onto the plane, found her seat, pulled out her laptop. She opened a document she'd been working on for months, titled, "My Story, How One Moment Changed Everything." She began to type, putting her story into her own words, knowing that somewhere out there, another scared kid needed to hear it. Another 10-year-old needed to know that their voice mattered. Another person needed permission to be brave. The plane taxied, lifted off, soared into the sky. And Maya Thompson flew toward her future, carrying with her every lesson she'd learned. That courage isn't the absence of fear but action in the face of it. That voices, even small ones, can change the world. That standing up, even once, even scared, is always worth it. The final text appeared on screen. Maya Thompson graduated from MIT with honors in 2032. She now works as an aerospace engineer and youth advocacy consultant, continuing to use her voice for change. Marcus Thompson remains healthy and retired in 2034 to focus on mentoring young black fathers. Karen Mitchell's actions led to sweeping changes in airline industry discrimination training. 87 airlines worldwide implemented new protocols based on the incident. Dr. Sarah Williams and Maya co-founded a mentorship program connecting minority youth with professionals in STEM fields. As of 2026, the program has mentored over 10,000 young people. Mrs. Chin passed away in 2029 at age 87. She left a scholarship fund in Maya's name for young scientists. Every year, Maya presents the first award personally. Brenda's Bystander Intervention Training Program is now used by over 200 companies nationwide. This story is fiction, but the discrimination it depicts is reality for millions. If you witness injustice, be the person who stands up. Use your voice. Every time. No matter how small you feel. Because sometimes, the bravest thing in the world is a 10-year-old girl standing in an airplane aisle, holding a wallet, saying 5 simple words. "That's my dad's wallet." And refusing to back down. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, if it made you think about courage differently, if it inspired you to use your own voice, please like this video and subscribe to Black Lens for more stories like this one. And I want to leave you with one final question. The next time you see something wrong, will you be the person who stays silent, or will you be the person who stands up? The choice is yours. Make it count.